Well, the United States has announced the resumption of military aid to Bahrain, despite Manama's regime's brutal crackdown on pro-democracy protesters. State Department spokesman John Kirby says the decision is due to, quote, meaningful progress on human rights in Bahrain. Kirby did not specify which weaponry or equipment would be transferred to the Persian Gulf Kingdom. The New York-based Human Rights First has condemned the decision, calling it a major blow to efforts to implement rights reforms in Bahrain. Scores of Bahrainis have lost their lives since the Al Khalifa regime, backed by Saudi Arabia, launched a crackdown on peaceful protesters back in 2011. Washington, which has its fifth Navy fleet in Bahrain, has particularly been criticized for backing the brutal Bahraini regime. Crossing over to West Virginia, joined by former lecturer from the University of Bahrain, Mr. Colin Cavell. Good to have you with us. What do you make of this? The United States actually is saying that the Bahraini regime is making human rights progress, thus that relations, especially in dealing with giving them equipment or selling equipment to them, can be resumed. Your take, sir.
Marzia, as much as the United States wishes to dress this up as some sort of humanitarian gesture because supposedly the Bahraini regime has improved its human rights situation, the entire world outside the United States knows this is not true, that the regime is brutal, that the regime continues to arrest people, tortures people, and kills people. What this represents from the U.S. perspective is a concession to Saudi Arabia to show that it is supporting Saudi Arabia in its efforts to maintain its hegemonic status in the region, as well as a concession to the defense industry of the United States to get some profits. But from the Bahraini people, from their perspective, this is a betrayal of all democratic values. This is blatant hypocrisy on the part of the United States, and this is the continuation, sends a message to the Bahraini regime to continue to arrest, torture, and kill anybody who opposes that monarchical dictatorial regime.
So what do you see taking place now? Is this sort of like a green light now for the regime itself towards the protesters who are fighting for a democratic process? But now the United States is basically saying that things are getting better, although on the ground, perhaps people would see it in a different light.
Things are definitely not getting better. In fact, the repression is more severe than it ever was in Bahrain. To say that there's been improvement is to completely blind oneself to the reality. The United States knows nothing has gotten better. But as the State Department spokesman added in his comment, he said this is basically in the interest of the United States. So for reasons of state, they are resuming the military sales to Bahrain because the United States wants to maintain Saudi Arabia as the regional hegemon and to maintain a grip on the region.
Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Colin Cavell, former lecturer from the University of Bahrain in West Virginia now.